Okay? Pixar hitting us where it hurts, as usual. Made a whole show just to tell us that, sometimes you're not going to have jobs where you use what you learned in college. It's real cold, Pixar. Not everything you do has to be so brutally honest. Hey everyone, and welcome to The Sandbox. The first season of Pixar's first ever TV show has come to a close, which means it's time to rank all 10 episodes from the worst to the best. Monsters at Work was one of my most anticipated series for Disney Plus when it was first announced. Monsters Inc. is a masterpiece, and Monsters University remains to this day my favorite Pixar film, so I was definitely looking forward to a continuation no matter what form that took. And I have to say, while I do think the show didn't shoot for the fences, it was certainly a cute exploration of the aftermath of Monsters Inc. So let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below and leave your ranking if you have one. And with that said, let's get started. Starting at the bottom with number 10 is episode 4, The Big Wazowskis. Let me be clear, I don't hate any of these episodes, but one of them has to be at the bottom, and unfortunately, for me, it's this one. Now, obviously, this show is aiming for a younger audience, but even when considering that, I think this is certainly the most childish episode with the most basic of lessons. The humor is fairly lacking and dry when it is present, deciding instead to focus on Tyler's arc of learning the dangers of lying. Tyler wants to suck up to Mike, so he lies about having a great bowling team to represent him, and then lies to the Miffed crew when he finds a better team, hurting everyone's feelings in the process until he realizes in the end what the right thing to do is. It's a basic arc that serves well for children, but besides that, it isn't all that exciting to watch. They also completely threw away the character of Gary by wasting the potential of Gabriel Iglesias. They should have given him more lines and let him be himself, because he's a funny dude and I just didn't think it came off that way with Gary. Hopefully, if there is a season 2, they can bring him back and give him more to do besides just slightly tormenting Mike.
Don't you worry that cute little round head of yours. It's just paperwork.
Rose, you are the best.
No, you're the best. Good luck, Gary. Gary.
Coming in at number 9 is episode 2, Meet Miffed. This is a much more solid and well-rounded episode, providing a bit more humor and a respectable story with Tyler wanting to escape the clutches of Miffed, but being dragged into a bizarre ritual of theirs, which is their way of welcoming him to the team. Of course, Tyler messes up the simplest of tasks, setting up his character for the season as a useless Mifter and a Debbie Downer in terms of what he thinks about the group. That is until Miffed is called into action to save Mike from the human world, and Tyler successfully wrenches the nut, saving Mike and Tyler's chances of ever becoming a jokester. This episode highlights the show's charm and potential, further setting up its characters after the pilot, as well as the overall tone of the show. Moving on to number 8 is episode 1, Welcome to Monsters Incorporated. As I said before, I was really excited for this show, and for the most part, I avoided the trailers because I wanted to be surprised, and the pilot definitely hyped me up for this show. I thought the premise it presented was a fantastic idea that utilized key points from Monsters Inc. and Monsters University for its own story. What happens to the monsters, young and old, that dedicated their lives to scaring after Monsters Inc. makes the switch to laugh power? This episode offers up that question, and while it doesn't fully explore it, it does set it up for the rest of the show. There are some great gags in this episode as well that definitely built up my expectations for the following episodes, such as Duncan pestering Tyler and of course Mike Wazowski's witty banter. And the super meta joke from the custodians definitely got a chuckle from me as well. All in all, I thought this was a great start to the season, introducing our new cast of characters and allowing room for the show to grow. Next up at number 7 is episode 3, The Damaged Room. I think this is where the show really started to hit its stride, making it clear that the show would be more episodic with parts of continuity for the overall story. And while episode 4 did feel like a step back after this, the show regained its progress shortly afterwards. We get our first fleshed out arc for the relationship between Tyler and Val, and we also get to see Mike and Sully relive some moments from the first film as they take a human child in disguise to a baseball game. It's a childish premise, sure enough, but it was fun, showcasing growth for Mike's character while utilizing his humor. This episode was filled with solid yet simple jokes like Tyler being loud during a mission that requires silence and Duncan being a snobby and annoying supervisor.
We are not your employees.
Okay, subordinates, whatever. I'll just be over here taking notes on your performance.
But the real highlight of this episode is the growth for Tyler as a person, or monster, and Val opening up about her insecurities. It's a tight-knit episode leaving little room for mistakes, yet it still lacks something extraordinary that would make it stand out. Which leads me to number 6, episode 6, The Vending Machine. I really enjoyed this episode. It fleshed out Fritz's character and further developed the ongoing rivalry between Tyler and Duncan, which I always find hilarious.
No, you can't have those. Hot Snots are my thing.
Your thing? No, they've been my thing since I was like 3.
3? My mom popped those babies instead of prenatals, okay?
It says to call an authorized service center.
Authorized. That's for amateurs like you. Don't touch that yellow wire.
There's also a good bit of emotion present in this episode, and while it strayed away from more outlandish ideas like other episodes, it was lighthearted and enjoyable. However, I will say that it could have been higher up if Tyler and the Miffed crew had a bigger part to play in saving Monsters, Inc. from this budget crisis. The ending just felt a bit rushed and coincidental, not allowing our main cast of characters to contribute to the solution throughout the episode. But taking the number 5 spot is episode 9, Bad Hair Day. Caught between 2 big episodes for Tyler, this one showcases Tyler's commitment to being the best mifter he can be since he now believes he'll never become a jokester. Of course, the same day he decides this, he walks in on Miff performing another weird ritual, this time that being a remembrance ceremony for the deceased David. Tyler then tries to distance himself from the other Miffed members and offers to do some other tasks for them while they get their nada haircuts. And this in turn leads to him losing David's lock of hair and him trying to recover it throughout the episode, or at least some hair that looks like it. He eventually goes to the shredder shaft where David died and has a miraculous vision with David where he gets advice on how to be the best mifter he can be. In the end, Tyler fesses up and learns that his honesty is what makes him a good mifter. Now I gotta say, I really thought they were setting up David not being dead with Val's constant remarks on the subject and the tone of the episode when Tyler goes to the shredder shaft. It all made me suspect that David would indeed still be alive. Maybe they didn't want to introduce or bring back a new main character in the second to last episode, or maybe it was an intentional misdirect, but in the end, it made the episode feel a little bit off for me, keeping it lower on my list than it could have been. Plus, how many times does Tyler need to learn that honesty will solve half of his problems and prevent the other half from ever even happening?
Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to.
I mean, a solid third of these episodes have the lesson of honesty for Tyler. The dude is a menace. Moving on to number 4 is episode 5, The Cover-Up. After episode 4, I was really hoping that this would be the one that grew up the show a bit and went back to its more mature roots and themes from Monsters, Inc. And while it did not achieve that, and instead decided to cement its younger tone, I did feel a deeper sense of stakes with this one. Tyler and Duncan's rivalry gets so bad here while Fritz is on vacation that it almost leads to the demise of Monsters, Inc. in total. And they try to cover up their big mistake, which just tumbles into this domino effect, making things worse and worse until they send the inspector to Fritz's vacation spot and save the day. This episode teaches the valuable lesson of taking responsibility for your actions in a very creative and unique way, providing great humor and some very memorable scenes.
And problem solved.
But kicking off my top 3 is episode 7, Adorable Returns. This is a great character-driven episode with Mike giving Tyler a chance to prove himself as a jokester, but Tyler accidentally finding himself in the banishment door and meeting Abominable, or Adorable as he prefers to be called. Adorable follows Tyler and Val out of his cave and into Monsters, Inc., forcing Tyler to have to trick him back into the banishment door, but not before Adorable calls Tyler a good friend who's got his back, leading to Tyler feeling down and ashamed of himself. Meanwhile, Val finds out the reason Adorable was banished in the first place and informs Mike and Sully, who officially unbanish him. This episode really challenges Tyler's character, it brings back a fan favorite, and it incorporates ties to the first film, making this a heavy hitter for the season in my eyes.
Happy birthday! Welcome to the Himalayas!
But my runner-up is the season finale, It's Laughter Thereafter. This is through and through a very arc-heavy episode, bringing many story threads to a close and providing a satisfying ending and beginning for our characters. And while this isn't the funniest episode that the show has to offer, it is still well equipped with some solid jokes. Each character has their moment to shine here, Fritz giving Tyler that extra push, Cutter using Tyler's idea for an extra large canister, Mike getting that last bit of laugh power to save the day, and Val being there for Tyler by being his partner on the laugh floor. Filled with happy endings and warm, feel-good moments, this episode brings the season to a remarkable close and provides some mind-blowing implications for the first film by showing that Tyler and Mift had a huge role in that happy ending we all know and love.
You've done something even James P. Sullivan himself hasn't done. Gone from scarer to jokester.
But my number 1 has gotta be episode 8, Little Monsters. This one starts off by providing some pretty big stakes for Tyler's arc, with him having his last failed attempt at being recruited as a full-time jokester. All hope seems lost until Mini Monsters Day presents Tyler with an opportunity to impress Mrs. Flint's daughter, Thalia, who he hopes will convince her mom into giving him another chance. Very similarly to Tyler, Thalia is very disinterested in Mift, not seeing their importance until they're called into action to save the day. In the end, they turn out to be a very compatible duo, and they have a productive day, with Tyler making her smile after he crashes into a coffee cart. He then fests up to her about his true intentions, and in turn, Thalia sticks up for him with her mom because he was the one monster who told her the truth. This is by far the best episode with that lesson of honesty, showing the bad that can happen from lying, but also the good that can happen from telling the truth. It also sets up Tyler's arc going into episode 9, while also setting up the events of the finale with Miss Flint calling him in to help out after she realizes that his jokester potential lies in physical comedy. I think this episode is the show's best outing, with fun humor, big stakes, and satisfying arcs for our characters. Well, that's my list. Don't forget to share yours in the comments down below and hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. And tell me, who is your favorite monster in Monsters at Work? For me, I thought Duncan was hilarious, but I also had a lot of fun with Fritz as well. Anyways, that's enough for me. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I will see you all next time.